Okay. So yeah, I want to talk about a lot of my favorite devices in Max for Live. I'm going to focus mostly on sequencing different parameters with these Max for Live devices, and then I'll do a brief overview of the patching environment. We aren't going to get too hardcore into patching because that's a work to itself, or a series of workshops unto itself. Um, I want to approach this from my own personal experience as a more traditional instrumentalist. I'm a bass player. So I want to show what can be done with sequencing raw sound from a bass guitar in real time using Max for Live. And what sort of a bass player, electronic music enthusiast would I be if I did not pay homage to Squarepusher? So what I want to do here is record a loop. So you can see my screen. You all can see my screen, right? Yep. All right. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Um, so what I want to do, I have my bass guitar channel open here, and you all can not hear that, but you can now. Is that too loud? Okay.
That's a good level.
Awesome. Awesome. So what I want to do is take a loop, just have this raw bass going into my interface, and I'm going to grab an instance of Ableton's looper. So the way I'm going to do that is open up my file browser over here, this kind of a triangular icon, and I'm already selected audio effects. I'm going to scroll down to looper and drag it in, and there it is, ready to go. I just know off the top of my head, this is going to be a 4-bar loop. So I'm going to go ahead and make that selection in this drop-down menu here. Hold on. I'm going to try to scroll in a little bit so you guys can better see what I'm doing. I'm going to make that selection 4 bars. Now, this next control over here, what it's going to do is record 4 bars, and then that plus sign is overdub. I just want it to play right away. And we are not going to have this set tempos. It's just going to follow the song tempo. So I'm going to make that selection in these drop-down menus. I'm not going to have it control the song in any way either. And I want the quantization to be the global quantization within the Ableton settings up here. So every kind of move you make is going to be quantized to the bar. Now, one thing that I've yet to do is map my controls. So I don't have a multi-camera system set up for you guys. But I want you to take my word for it that I do have a foot controller right underneath my desk here. So the way I'm going to map that control, it is I think it's a Yamaha, yeah, MFC10. So just a big bank of nice clunky buttons, which is kind of what I like to see in a foot controller. I don't want things to be too tiny. I want to be able to be sloppy and not pay total attention while I'm trying to take loops in terms of controllerism. So in this top right, sorry, I'm losing my bass to the floor. So in this top right over here, that MIDI key, we're going to click that and we're going to map our control. So the way you map controls is you have your MIDI controller already plugged in. Ableton's already set to look at it. And the way you do that, let's make sure I have this foot controller going into my audio interface. So I'm going to open up Ableton's preferences and click the link MIDI. I just want to make sure you can see that I am taking MIDI in from my Pro 24. That's my Sapphire audio interface, MIDI input going in there. I have remote clicked on, so that is all I need from that. I'm going to go ahead and go into Midi Mapping mode. Select this big multi-transport button is what they call it. If you want to familiarize yourself with any of the terminology in Ableton, a very, very good thing to do would be to check out the info view. And that is made available by clicking this other triangular icon. You click that and it'll kind of show you the names of the different parameters and what they do. So this multi-purpose transport button on Ableton's looper is very handy. It has a bunch of different, you get access to a bunch of different ways of controlling the looper just by mapping one single control. So I'm going to go ahead and map my foot controller to that. Go into map mode, click on the actual parameter I want to map to, and I'll go ahead and press my control that I want to designate to that function. So I have gone ahead and I have a very reliable working looper all ready to go for myself. So without further ado, I have a little bit of latency with my bass, so if y'all will forgive me, this probably won't be the best captured loop in the history of looping, but I'll go ahead. I want to play that sweet, sweet square pusher lick from Ultra Visitor with the you know, bass harmonics, very Jaco Pastorius thing. So let me give myself a little more volume for my metronome. So yeah, sloppy, but we're going to work with it because we don't need this thing to be perfect. What we're going to do is start chopping it up using one of my top 3 favorite forever Max for Live devices. That would be Buffer Shuffler. So this is, we're going to go over back to our file browser and click on packs. I believe this is in Max for Live, the Max for Live Essentials pack.
Hey, Nate, could you remind me what the name of that foot controller was that you were working with?
Oh, the Yamaha MFC10.
Cool.
And it is just a big, lovely bank of 10 very clunky big buttons. So it's very hard to, I like controllers that make it very deliberately hard for you to make mistakes, especially with a foot controller where you don't necessarily want to have to look directly at it the entire time you're performing, right? So you can kind of keep track of where it is.
Yeah.
Excuse me, getting parched. So yeah, let's go back over to the Max for Live Essentials pack in the file browser. And we want a Max audio effect. And you will see Buffer Shuffler is right there for us. This is the Buffer Shuffler 2.0 version. So let's go ahead and click and drag that in right there. You'll see it will pop up. Let me get rid of my camera view. So let's turn this back on. Now, what's going on here? You're going to notice we're scrolling through this series of kind of blue slices, right? So this x-axis with all these green triangles at the bottom, this is scrolling through time. Like it's very much set up like a step sequencer. It's going to scroll over this, through this over and over again. And what these individual kind of blue slices are, these are individual, right now it's set to 1/8 notes. So these are individual 1/8 notes of that entire loop. So what we can do here is start rearranging those 1/8 notes on the fly. The way this works is it takes that entire loop I just did and kind of cuts it up into individual little mini buffers. And when they're played ascending in that sequential order, you'll hear the loop back unaffected. So let's go ahead. I want to set this to 16th notes. So the way I'm going to do that, just click this 16 steps right here. Let's bring the volume back up. And you'll notice right here, I have, this is an effect that is in stereo. So I can manipulate the left and the right channel of these slices. And that gives you some really interesting stuff. But for right now, I just want to dice up these blue bits and kind of rearrange the way it sounds. So if you've ever listened to the books, this is, I pretty much kind of think of this plugin as Instabooks, right? It's very much a lot of that fellow's recordings are kind of drenched in this similar technique, although I don't believe that person had access to Buffer Shuffler at the time he was making all this music, all that music. So let's go ahead and reset this. Oop. That reset button right there. So we're going to start playing this over in the same sequence. Again, that ascending is those individual 16th notes being played in order. What you can do is start dicing them in different ways. You'll see I have my that dice option set to random. What you can do is reverse it, invert it, different like a permutation of what's already available, and just shifting it around in different directions. Naturally, I prefer random. It'll just give me something that I can really predict. But if you want to play those slices in reverse, so you can get some interesting stuff there. But again, I'm going to go ahead and reset that. I want to talk now about these little green triangles at the bottom. Now, what this triangle pointing to the right indicates is that it's going to play the individual buffer normally, unaffected. You can play that if you click each of these green triangles just once, you'll see it reverses direction, faces towards the left, meaning it will play the buffer, that individual 16th note buffer, in reverse. And if you click again, you'll notice it X's out, meaning it will not play the buffer at all. So let's listen to that. And we also have the option to randomize these, which, you know, let's just take advantage of that because randomization is fun. Yeah, there we go. Isn't that pretty? So yeah, let's go back and rearrange the order of these individual 16th note buffers. I'm going to go back to that drop-down menu, have it dice it randomly for me, and let's just go ahead and make that happen for ourselves. See what that sounds like. So right away, it's a very, very simple technique for taking one, it could be, your loop could be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be, but at the end of being processed by buffer shuffler, you're going to get something pretty wildly different, but still you can tell what the source material was. And yeah, feel free to drop questions in the chat and all that good stuff. So let's talk about some of these other parameters that are going on in this device. You're going to notice, again, going back to that, how this is effect in stereo. You have the left channel is being processed in this exact same way. And you could also go ahead and process the right channel with its own sequence of playing buffers in different orders and in different directions. But right now, before we can do that, we have to kind of unlink the left and the right signal by clicking this button right here. It's kind of buried in the top left. So let's get rid of that, and we can start dicing around the right channel. So let's bring that up and see what that's giving us. So yeah, that's very pretty. That totally speaks to me in a big bad way. I'm very glad I elected to tip my cap to Square Pusher. I love that riff so much. Very, very beautiful. And continuing on with the parameters of this device, we have a stutter. So it's pretty much like a retrigger. And you can, I'll turn this pretty much all the way up, right? On each of these individual buffers is now going to be retriggered so many times every single 16th note. And you're going to hear it gets glitchy and pretty out of control right away. And we have some clicking going on there, which I like the way audio clicks sound, but if you don't, and if you find it to be annoying, which a lot of people do, totally get it, there's a smoothing parameter, and you'll see over here the smoothing's at 10%. If we bring it up all the way, it should take care of most, if not all, of the clicking. It's still kind of in there. But let's go back and make this a little more pretty and a little more manageable. Now, that might not be so manageable. Yeah. This is a lot of fun. One good thing that this device will very much, it won't save you from yourself right away. So if you're into doing all this like tasteless mangling and glitching like I am, you can absolutely go out of control, but it does give you some fail safes. So you can see right here, I'm looking at the steps, right? This is, again, functioning very much like a step sequencer. I can go and click this tab control over here that says rules. So what that's going to do is take away options from me. So let's say I don't want all these retrigger options available to me at all. So I'm just clicking on them and dragging. Click, hold down, and drag, and I get rid of all these, right? So pretty much now when I randomize it, when I go back to that steps mode of this feedback, you'll see all these options I had previously are no longer available to me. So I can go ahead and start dicing these up and only get so many retriggers. So let's see what that sounds like. Okay, moving on with the parameters. Any questions about this stuff so far? Everyone doing good? Take that as a big yes.
We do have a question from Alan, and Alan's asking if there's a way to change the alignment of the notes. He guesses there's probably a few ways.
Oh, so in terms of these like individual like buffers here. So
I figure this maybe needs a little explaining, this question. So like this only cuts it up by 16th notes.
yes.
So like, can you shift the clip left and right by like a few milliseconds so that it cuts like more on the beat, you know?
Oh, you know that that's going to really be up to your taking a really good loop, which I most certainly did not do this time.
Well, I was thinking like you could put like a delay after the looper. Like,
oh yeah.
Just 100% wet and then like just a few milliseconds or something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like, can't you also like, you can from the looper drag a clip into session view and then you can manually edit the clip?
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, no, that's great that you brought that up. For those that don't know, in Looper, scrolling right there, you see that little drag me icon. If you click, hold down on that and drag it, you can bring that as a clip into your audio track. And that way your clip is totally captured. You can clear out your looper, bring that to auto.
And Nate, that sort of brushes on the next question from Vanessa, and that's if we can use a WAV file with buffer shuffler.
Absolutely, yeah. If you just drag a WAV file into these empty clip slots here, that should come out. I think I have some, let's see.
Related question. Is there a way to, from Looper, via like a foot switch, click a button and have it automatically save the loop? Like I've always imagined using Looper, like you play for a while, you hit a button, it saves your clip and gives you a brand new blank clip to start playing again.
Oh, like can you like have a control that will drag and drop clips out of Looper for you?
Exactly, and prepare you to do a new loop.
Yep. So that is a big Max for Live workaround. I have a solution for that. that those controls are not available right out of the gate. Unfortunately, it's something you need to configure on your own. I do have a solution for that. There's a lot of stuff. I would very much love to turn this into one giant commercial about my work, but I'm not going to do that. But I will lean in on that question because it's super relevant to my work. I have a Max for Live workaround for that. It's on my website, deferlow.com. I'll dig that up. Let me make a note of that to myself so I can email this to people. But I have a solution that will, what it does is it emulates mouse commands. So it uses Java's Autobot class to emulate mouse commands, and it just is a single button that will click and drag a looper, a clip from a looper. What it does not do is automatically clear the looper. Once that is done, the looper will be there. So you might, if you really get into patching with Max for Live, that is absolutely an option, a control you can add to this drag and drop solution.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to see the post on your website, certainly. And then Vanessa was asking about like dropping a WAV file in as a clip or something.
Yep. Into Looper or into, because you can go ahead and do that. Like right there, I have this WAV file called Rando Metal Ringing. I'm not sure what that is, so I'm not going to subject you guys to it. But you can see in my file browser over here. So let's expand that again. I know on my desktop, I have a folder called audio files. And this is the first one that I just saw that was a WAV. So if I click and drag that into a blank clip slot on your track, it'll go ahead and create a clip for you. I'm not too sure you can do that with Looper though. Let's experiment. Can you do that? It doesn't seem, oh, yep, you can do that. You can totally drag WAV files into Looper and it will do its best to assess how long.
Oh, that's so cool. So you could like start with a WAV file and then loop over it.
Yeah.
I never knew you could do that either.
Yeah, neither did I. So we are all learning today, people. This is great. Any other questions? This is great. Keep it coming, man. Nope. All looking good. Groovy. So rather than subject you guys to whatever rando metal ringing sounds like, I'm just going to keep on keeping on with the parameters of buffer shuffler. I won't go into, with all these devices, I am not going to go into every single little parameter because, you know, I could totally waste an hour talking about buffer shuffler alone. But I do want to talk a little bit more about some of the other parameters, specifically the gating parameter, which will, if you'll notice by default, all these they're kind of behaving as sliders almost, but all these little, you know, little blue slices are turned all the way up, meaning the gate for that individual 16th note is open. So if I also dice that up, you'll see it kind of shortens the note for me, gives me a little more staccato. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let that be. What I want to do now, I'm going to create another track with my bass guitar coming in. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this track and delete these clips and delete this buffer shuffler. I do want to leave that looper on there. And I also want to get into another Max for Live essential device, which would be the Convolution Reverb. This is super awesome. It's really, really fun, especially if you're the type of person who not only owns a field recorder, but also uses it pretty frequently and takes it with you whenever you go anywhere on trips or something. So let's go back to our packs. Max for Live Essentials, and then Convolution Reverb. We're just going to use the regular old Convolution Reverb. I won't get into the pro version of this device. So let's collapse that a little bit. We'll get into the EQ parameters in a minute. Pretty much what's going on with convolution reverb is you go out into the world, and let's say you find a really great natural reverb that you like, and you have a field recorder handy with you. You can go ahead and just take a recording of what that reverb sounds like. And what you can do is load that file. So essentially you set your field recorder up and you just clap while you're in this environment and wait for that natural reverb to decay all the way and go back to essentially silence. You can take that field recording and then place it within this folder that Ableton has. And I'll show you how to get there. It's kind of buried, but you can place that in this convolution reverb folder. And what this device does is it analyzes that file and creates and recreates the reverb for you that's present in that file. It's a pretty cool process, and it is a lot of fun if you are the type of person who kind of keeps track of natural reverbs that you come across in space. So you can see I'm here in that Max for Live packs. I open that. Sorry? Nope. Am I missing? Did I hear a question or no? Okay. So I'm here in the packs, the Max for Live Essentials, Convolution Reverb. You see I have this folder called IRs, that's impulse responses. And that's pretty much where all these field recordings are. So you can see what they sound like here. Let's give that a little more juice. Right. So I'm going to pick one of these. With this convolution reverb device, you can go ahead and kind of scroll through those files I just showed you. They kind of pop up in these drop-down menus here. They've kind of categorized what these spaces are for you. I'm going to go straight to bigger spaces. And I'm going to go ahead and start kind of messing with my bass. Oh, I want to set my monitoring tab to in, right? And I also want to turn that on. Ooh, sorry guys. Goodness gracious. So you can see, like, listening to what this reverb sounds like, and you kind of see that that is very much what you're hearing is kind of mimicked in this waveform. Big attack, cuts right out, and then kind of swells back in, right? I don't necessarily want that. Let's see what a Midi factory sounds like. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's more my style. I like that. Midi factory. You'd be surprised how often you can get a result you want by being like amused by what the file is called. So let's go ahead. We're going to use Looper and take some more loops and then start mangling these kind of percussive hits I'm going to take by just kind of hitting my bass guitar. I do have let's map another control. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and use my mouse to do this. Let's not worry about the foot controller. So I have my metronome on. I don't really need 4 bars of this. I'm just going to go for 1 bar. And since my quantization is set to global, I just need to make sure I hit this button anytime before the downbeat, and it will start recording that 1 bar for me. So here we go. Okay, so there we are. That is my loop. I'm going to go ahead and take that, drag that into my next track, and just keep that. And let me get rid of my bass so I don't have to worry about this thing falling down. All right, so something you may not know about Looper is, aside from dragging those clips out of it into empty clip slots, you can also drag it into instruments. specifically, I'm going to use an instance of Ableton Sampler. I'm going to drag the clip into Sampler, and we will use another Max for Live device to start sequencing it. So I'll go ahead, I'm going to create a MIDI track because Sampler is a MIDI instrument. And I'm going to go over to Instruments, my file browser, and just drag in Sampler. And from there, let's go back to our looper that has this, and I'm going to drag and drop that clip into Sampler. And you can see I have those nice little verbed out bass hits on there for me. I had a little, okay, here we go. I have a little MIDI keys right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and plug in and start seeing if I can. Oh. So what I'm doing right now, I'm hitting these MIDI keys here, and it's repitching that little bass hit I just took with the looper. You guys can see that. So that's all very fun and well and good, but I want to see what Max for Live would have to say about sequencing that. And the way I want to do that is to drag in. This is one of the first Max for Live devices that was released when it first came out in 2010 was this step sequencer. And I am still very much in love with the step sequencer. I think it is awesome. We are going to want to go back over to our packs. And this is going to be in a pack called Big 3. So in Big 3, you're going to see that first instance of buffer shuffler, something called loop shifter. This works with pre-recorded material. You'll load a file in and it'll cut it up for you in different ways. But here's the M for L step sequencer. I'm going to drag that in. Oh, and you can see right away it starts getting going for me. But let's get into the parameters of the step sequencer because there is a lot to unpack here. So first thing you're going to notice is it's very much set up that similar step sequencer style interface that you saw in Buffer Shuffler, only now instead of chunks of audio, we're just working with raw MIDI. So this is MIDI pitch information. You'll notice on the left you have a piano scroll right here. Right now you see we have a pretty narrow and limited range of notes. To expand or contract that range, you click on the piano scroll itself and kind of drag left or right. Left will expand and right will kind of take away your options. So I'm going to go ahead and give myself all the options. And what I want to do is randomize the notes. So you'll see I have different parameters of each MIDI value that I can work with here. So velocity, duration, so when it's going to send that note off message. And also we have probability. So by default, all these are turned all the way up, which means 100% of the time the step sequencer will actually output that note. And if I turn them all the way down, then the note, each of these individual notes that will scroll through in time will not be output. So let's, for the sake of just hearing what this thing can do, let's keep our probability up all the way. Duration is fine. Velocity, let's kind of have it be nice and present and loud. And I'm gonna go ahead and randomize all the notes, these individual notes. So I do that by clicking this little R button that will randomize my notes all around the whole MIDI pitch range for me. Now over to the right, in this interface, we're going to have 4 different layers. You'll notice, let's kind of zoom out a little bit so you guys can actually see that. You got 4 different layers of MIDI data that you can be sending out here. So you see that first layer, that is that sequence where I've kind of had the whole MIDI pitch range available to me. I'm going to go ahead and do that same exact thing for all my 4 layers of MIDI data. I'll go ahead, give me the full range, and randomize all the notes that are being output. And so with sampler, the way it's kind of handling pitch shifting is it's kind of speeding up and slowing down the speed at which the file is played back at. So let's go ahead. I imagine if I have a MIDI value that's pitched down too low, you won't really hear anything. Similarly, if you pitch one up too high, you really won't hear all that much. So let's see. Yeah. So that's what that sequence sounds like. You'll notice it's playing the entire loop when it's pitched up really high. You'll kind of see, yeah, you see that bar scrolling in sampler. It's kind of showing you where in the file it's playing back at with each MIDI note. So let's go ahead and take away some options there. So I only want, when this instrument receives a MIDI note, I only want it to play one little chunk of that loop that I dragged in. So I'm going to take away that option with this scroll bar at the side here, and pretty much that's just cutting out the audio that I'm cutting out the audio that I want to process. So I'm only hearing that chunk of audio. And I do want to bring the volume up a little bit. And again, if I bring the option of playing the entire loop back, you'll hear a little more kind of crispiness at the top as it plays through the rest of that loop really quickly. You know what? I kind of like this middle chunk right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just have it play that little middle hit that I took. And I'm going to go ahead and see what it sounds like when I'm playing all 4 layers of from this sequencer. Let's see what happens when I have that going for myself. All right, so another kind of simple, straightforward way of just taking a loop from a raw source and then resampling it and resequencing it on the fly like that. You can do this stuff, if you have this stuff kind of pre-set up, you can do this pretty quickly and pretty easily. And it's giving me I like the results that it's giving me. There are some ways to make this sound a little more interesting within sampler itself. So first thing I want to do is go over to this filter tab at the top of the instrument here. You're going to see I have some interfaces with which to kind of try manipulating the sound. So I want to first kind of filter it out and maybe select some different filter models to apply. So you see right here, these different filter circuits are kind of emulating different hardware filters. I'm just going to pick one at random. Adam Fangsrud knows a lot more about these models than I do, so you could explain them better. But really, at the end of the day, what you're going to want to do is keep an open mind and just be playful with it. Just don't try to exit that mind frame where you're always asking, what does it sound like when I do this? Or what happens when I do that? Just always try to stay there. You'd be very surprised what results you get from that mentality. What I did just there was apply a little bit of randomized panning to it. And the way I did that was turning up this this percentage right here at the right of the interface. So you see, if I turn it up a lot more, you'll get super randomized panning. Turning it down, no randomized panning.
It's really inspiring how you're just putting this set of devices together and then randomizing it and feeding it like one sound.
Yeah.
So if you set this up and then fed it a different sound, you'd get like a completely different sounding, like different timbral.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so and the beat that comes out the other side sounds like you spent, hours on it, right? But
right.
Yeah.
You got like almost like a Trent Reznor thing coming out of this sampler instrument. But yeah, that's a really good point. Like, depending on what your source material is, this would sound radically different. And especially if you want to work with pitched material. So that is a great segue to showing exactly what that would sound like. So I'm going to go back. So I took my my loop right there of that reverbed out bass hit. And if I just take another loop of I am still playing very good. Oh. I'm not going to mess with any reverb here. A little crispy, coming in hot. Sorry, guys. So yeah, let's go ahead and experiment with changing up what's coming out of this just by swapping, coming out of the sampler just by swapping the sample itself. So I took a little loop of just a harmonic on my bass guitar, and I'll go ahead and drag and drop that into here. I'm going to turn the volume down on this a little bit so it's not too nuts. And let's just see what's coming out. Right, so madness, babbling madness. But if you want to reel it in and still maintain that kind of randomization, an easy way to do that is to go over to your MIDI effects in your file browser and just pick out a MIDI scale. So F major, why not?
Yeah.
Or you could have it play just nothing but a single note, this scale device. I think there's, yeah, just.
Mira todas las escalas que tiene. Haciendo trampa.
So it's playing nothing but octaves, essentially, right there. No matter what is coming out of the step sequencer, it's just going to automatically snap to a D note, and then play that sample back at that value. Is there any questions about that? I know this stuff can get a little convoluted pretty quickly.
Yeah, somebody's asking if you could literally map all the various randomization buttons to a single MIDI control, and a single button would give you an entirely new song. And that's from Alan again.
Oh man, I love that. That is such a great question. I mean, the answer is, all right, so that is a short answer, yes, but, and like long answer, no, with a maybe. So yeah, totally, you can do that. That's definitely been a rabbit hole that I went down for way too long, and you can totally do that. You absolutely can. But the setup takes forever. Like you're looking at, like, I don't know, years worth of banging your head against various walls, for sure. So yeah, absolutely. I say, why not? I found that approaching things in that way to be like really, I'll say it appealed to like the worst part of my brain in the best way possible. So it was like really rewarding, and satisfied a ton of my curiosity about things. But it also removed a lot of options from me, approaching music in a more traditional way. So I wanted to kind of get back to that. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was less of a question. I knew that you could do it. I struggle a little bit with sort of like the philosophy of like intention in music and like technology, you know, like, did you intend to make that thing? Did you really make it if you didn't intend to make it, if it was just randomization?
Right.
But then I see things like this and I'm like, well, yeah, you know, you spent 20, 30 minutes figuring out the settings that made it sound the way you wanted. So.
Yep. And that's like, I think process is key. And yeah, there does come a certain point where you step back and think, well, am I really responsible for these things? So that kind of, I kind of stopped looking at the computer as a tool and more as a collaborator past a certain point. So it kind of helps me stay cozy in this randomized world by thinking of things that way.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, people are creating all these little pieces that you're using. It's like you're collaborating with all those people.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Yeah, I like it, man. Really good. I do want to maintain the way it sounded with that reverbed out bass hit. So I'm gonna go ahead and drag that back into the looper. And again, I'm kind of removing the options in my audio of how much of that sound is coming out. So with these little arrow scroll bars here. Cool. And just since I'm curious, I kind of want to see what that sounds like with the buffer shuffler loop happening at the same time. So we'll see if these two things are complementary at all. Yeah. So right, that sparks joy for me. All right, where am I? Let's oh, very good. I have my notes here so I don't get lost, which, you know, very frequently am I getting lost in this stuff because I could really bore you guys by making y'all listen to that for 5 minutes straight. So let's talk about getting very, very weird. So I'm going to again kind of duplicate this track going on with that original loop, that kind of square pusher loop that I'm so fond of. And I'm going to keep, I don't need those. Oh. Just going to delete that rando metal scraping or whatever that was called that I dragged in earlier. And I don't want to process this with buffer shuffler again. We've already been there. I don't need to do that. I want to talk about another kind of randomization effect that I've grown super fond of just because it's so crazy sounding. And that is when you randomize every parameter in an Ableton's stock chorus effect. So let's go ahead and do that. So first we'll go over to our audio effects and we're going to drag in chorus. And a lot of people think that sounds could be sent back to the 80s where it belongs, but I very much like it. Let's just turn that dry wet all the way up. And the way I'm going to randomize this is with a dadageek exclusive that we'll be sharing with you guys. It is a parameter randomizer effect that I built for our students. you guys as well. We'll pack up this set and send it out to you guys later on, so that y'all can have access to all this stuff that I've been doing here. So I have to find where that device is real quick. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to drag in 2 instances of this effect, and you're going to see right away it just sends. All of this is going to do is modulate parameters randomly. It's not going to process the audio in any way. So the audio passes in through this effect and out through it unaffected. What's going to do the affecting is the chorus effect. And what I want to do is start mapping these controls to the various parameters in the chorus device. So let's zoom in on that. What I'm going to do here is click on this map toggle right here, and then click on the parameter I want to randomize. So my clock is running, and right now you'll see I will randomly select 2 values between 0 and 1, and that'll happen every 16th note. So you can select different basic timings here, rhythmic subdivisions by which to randomize the selected parameter. And I want, let's say we're going to generate 11 different random values between 0 and 1. There it goes. Okay, so you see that when I clicked that randomize toggle right here, I started getting those selections automatically in that parameter. So let's do that for all of these kind of strips of controls right here. So I'm going to go ahead, map. Let's select 20 values between 0 and 1. And I have another instance of this, come on, another instance of this effect over here. Okay. Oh, so the reason that it's only controlling the high pass filter. Let's see what that sounds like. Pretty wild. But what I want to do is randomize, come on, every parameter. So let's just start doing that. See what that sounds like. I'm probably going to want to bring the feedback parameter on this all the way up to get as truly crazy as I want it to get. So like, yep, pretty crazy, but not quite good enough. Oh my. So what do we do in this instance? We use a limiter. You can see I'm going in the red, and that's never good. Now, again, we have a lot of randomized babbling and incoherence. And it's just going to keep doing that. And I want you to kind of like, again, I'm going to use a looper here. I'm going to go ahead and make it so that I only hear the output, the inputted audio that's going into the looper. I only want to hear that when I'm recording, overdubbing, or the looper is stopped. And all I want to do here is record 1 bar and then play it back. And I want you to kind of pay attention to when your mind becomes acclimated to the sound. So repetition is a very, very important part of music. And I'm always amazed at how quickly that your mind can adapt to 1 bar of randomness as soon as it repeats itself. I'm gonna keep kind of capturing. I'm gonna keep capturing 1 bar at a time until I get something that's kind of speaking to me. And there it is. Some of the other parameters in this looper device, you can mess with the speed of playback, and that can give you some interesting options. If I pitch it down an octave, well, it'll go down in an octave, but really what I'm doing is cutting the playback speed in half. So let's go there. Yep, so good and weird and exactly what I wanted. Let's start kind of chopping this up as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and create another MIDI track. And instead of sampler, I'm going to use simpler. So let's go back to my instruments in my file browser and drag simpler in. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Max for Live. We're going to go back to our Max for Live Essentials pack, I believe. I believe this counts as a MIDI effect. Mono sequencer, that's what we want, people. All right. Let's have that play back at normal speed. And what I'm gonna do is drag that loop out of the looper and into, oh no, into our simpler device. Now by default, let's see, where's my keyboard? By default, my MIDI keyboard loses communication with my computer, but that's okay. We don't necessarily need it. We're just gonna start sequencing this thing anyways. And what I want to do, instead of repitching it according to a MIDI note value that it's getting, I want that MIDI note to trigger different points in time in that loop. And the way to do that is by clicking on the slice mode for sample playback. You can see it kind of cut it up automatically for me by transient. So when your audio is going past that 0 threshold. This is going to very much work kind of similarly to that first step sequencer I showed you guys, but this doesn't have those 4 layers, nor does it have, nor does it weight every single MIDI note with a probability. So let's go ahead and randomize the pitch. Well, first let's play the lowest pitch possible, so we can make absolutely certain that we are going to send out a MIDI note value that's actually meaningful to our simpler instrument. right? So at its lowest value, it's sending out a MIDI pitch that automatically starts triggering back a chunk of audio that's very late in the waveform time-wise. So luckily in this mono sequencer, you have a transpose parameter down here in the bottom right. So let's just pitch that down until we actually start triggering our first chunk. All right. Similarly, let's find out what the highest pitch value. So you see we're going from C to C here. So two octaves worth of stuff. And I can see right out of the gate, we don't really have 2 octaves worth of slices that we can start sequencing. So I'm going to, instead of slicing this up by transient, I want to slice it up by region and give myself two octaves worth of region. So 24, there's 12 notes in an octave times 2, 24, or yeah. So I had to pitch it down a little more. I give myself 25 regions. Okay, so any questions about what's going on with that so far? All making sense? Groovy. I'm gonna go ahead and randomize the pitches coming out of this step sequencer. Again, this is working at a 16th note. So I'll go ahead, randomize these note values. And, oh, this is why you see these, it's not really giving me a wildly random different notes. That's because I have this randomize percent parameter. It's so far down, it's only a quarter. It's going to be a quarter randomized away from its original value. So let's, oh, sorry guys. Let's just push that up to 100% and get some nice random values going for ourselves. Okay. So we have this madness that came out of our randomized chorus effect looper going into simpler and just being chopped up kind of in the, it's kind of the same thing that buffer shuffler is doing. Like it's kind of a different route to that same sort of area, but you know, buffer shuffler has some more advantages to it, especially when you can split the left and the right signal like that. So let's go through some more of these parameters. See, by default,
seems cool that it has the advantage that you can set the various samples. Like,
yeah,
you don't just rely on the buffer choosing 16 sections. Here you can say like, here's the beginning of this piece, here's the beginning of this note, you know.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to mess around with the velocity parameter. Pretty much velocity, what you hear is like how loud an individual note is being played back. I think it's supposed to be how, like mimic how hard something is hit. Wait a minute. So if I have it all the way down, oh. So the reason why my velocity parameter isn't really affecting the playback all that much, you can kind of hear something, right? But I want it to be affected a little bit more, and that's what you kind of can do that with this dial over here at the bottom right of the simpler interface. So the velocity will greater affect the volume of the note that's being played back when you turn that up. Ooh. You can also pitch around according to the octave, but we already are outputting MIDI note values that are meaningful to the process we're trying to engage in right now. So let's not mess around with that. And again, with duration, you can kind of have a little, it's not really gonna do much. Yeah, so, you know, kind of, if we had a longer chunk, you could probably hear what the duration is doing, which we can easily see by manipulating the rhythmic subdivision that the sequencer is synced to. So right now, again, we're doing 16th notes. Let's just do quarter notes and see what happens. No, not really hearing it.
If you could turn looping on for your slices, you'd probably hear it.
Oh.
If there's a way to do that.
How do I do that?
Let's see. I thought there was a way to do that. Is there not? Maybe not.
What happens when you hit the caret on the looper or on that sampler device to expand the device upward?
Oh. So a kind of, I think it'll give me just a bigger interface to look at and like a little more room to kind of mouse around and move my different regions around. It just kind of expands.
Or what about like trigger versus gate? Like if that would also do it, right? Because it would be.
Yeah. So right here with trigger, it's going to take, since the chunks themselves are so small, I think if I only used like an octave, one octave's worth of notes, we would hear this a little bit better. So I could do that. But with trigger, the trigger mode, it's going to take a MIDI on note, play the whole chunk, and ignore the off note. With gate, it's going to take the MIDI on and also listen to the MIDI off. So let me go ahead and have it trigger less regions. So one octave's worth of regions. Or how about just like 8 notes worth of regions? So I have like a little bit, you see, as I add more regions, my individual slices get shorter in time. And if I have more, I have a longer amount of time. So let's these. Oh. So I brought all my MIDI notes all the way down. So it's going to trigger that first chunk. And if I have it pay attention to duration, let's see. Let's just have it.
I think, and now if you have the step sequencer running faster, you could get more staccato versus legato notes.
Yeah, totally. Yep. So yeah, all that's making sense. Cool. So I want to go back to the way I had it set up before with my 2 octaves and and I'll randomize all my pitches around. And I also want to just make brief mention of this repeat parameter. So this is similarly with buffer shuffler, this is re-triggering within that 1/16th note. So let's go back to. So if I turn this all the way up, you're going to have some really, really glitchy stuff going on. So. We'll randomize that. All wild. So yeah, that's going to be that for that technique right there, for the mono sequencer into simpler with raw material collected from an over randomized chorus device. Any questions about anything? I want to very briefly touch upon the patching environment real quick. So this is, at this point, we'll all suffer a little bit of what's referred to as unlock shock when it comes to Max for Live. This is what Max for Live isn't just a you know, a collection of devices that behave as an expansion for Ableton. Rather, Max MSP is this programming environment, and this Max for Live expansion allows Ableton to behave as a host for this Max MSP programming environment. All of these Max for Live devices, you can open them up and start messing with them yourself, and you can even build your own devices from scratch. So I made these parameter randomizers, and they do have their own, Max for Live does have its own parameter randomizer that you can use, but I just kind of wanted to show how that was accomplished. So you click this little icon that I just clicked right here. I'm going to click that, and Max for Live, the programming environment itself will launch. And what you see right here, so you see pretty much the interface. This is what's called presentation mode in the patching environment. It's what you interact with. Now, if I go into patching mode, you're going to see this kind of you know, ever expanding kind of nonsensical you know, collection of just very foreign looking you know, objects and things. So pretty much what's going on here is each of these individual rectangles, you can kind of think of them as their own miniature computer program. And what it's up to you to do is to kind of collect, have them network with each other in a way that's meaningful and gives you the process that you want. So pretty much what each of these are doing is, first, I have a mechanism that looks for what parameter I've clicked on, and then will map to that parameter. And then I have other mechanisms that pay attention to Ableton's clock, so it can determine what a 16th note is, and also pick different random values that are actually meaningful for that parameter. So I'm not going to go into exactly every single bit of how this patch is working, but if you guys do want to get into it, this is going to be packed up with the live set. This will be available to you, and you can kind of pick this apart and see what each individual object here is doing. So all of these objects have their own help files, and they kind of let you know how they work. You can access those by clicking this little left, this triangle that pops up when I hover over the left of the object. You just scroll down to and click the help file, and you have this documentation that kind of tells you what this device, this particular object is doing, and how you can manipulate it within the patching environment. So let's close that down and not save it. And that's gonna be it from me for now. Are there any questions about anything? Anything you want me to elaborate on or go over? I am all ears. Let me know.
Just some comments, man. Some people saying wonderful, and that you make the cleanest patches. Very tidy.
Yeah, my patches are, I pride myself on my legible patching. Thank you very much for noticing. Yeah. Cool.
Oh, we have a question. Does Max for Live work on light or standard?
Oh, so I think you need to get a separate Max for Live license. It does come bundled in Suite, but if you have standard, you do have the option of buying a separate license as an addition. instead of buying the entire suite upgrade. I'm pretty sure you can buy just a Max for Live license, and it'll work that way. But by default, it will not work with light or standard, unfortunately.
And then follow-up question, have you ever randomized a randomizer?
Oh man.
From 10.
That's awesome. That's a great question. Honestly, I don't think so. And now I'm just embarrassed, you know? So, right.
Are you
There's no better time than the present.
Random.
Oh my goodness. So what, should I try to randomize a randomizer?
I think you're obligated to.
Okay. Let's see if it actually works, right?
I'm curious how everything sounds all at the same time.
Oh my. All right. So this is a 1-2 right here. Let's see if I can actually map. I'm just gonna create a blank track and drag that randomizer in and see if I can randomize one parameter within the randomizer. And I'm going to map this randomizer to the 16th note. It mapped. Timing menu. Oh, come on. Oh. And randomize. Look at that. It's happening, people.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. So we did it. We can randomize the randomizer. So, oh yeah, next one. Let's see what it all sounds like together. All right. It's going to be more like babbling incoherent nonsense, but that's cool. No, that's not right. That's kind of cool to me, right? Like
That's great, man.
I like
That's
that stuff.
That's what I listen to all day, every day. Anyway.
Yeah, right. It's like it's definitely like first date music for sure. There's one really cool little super simple audio effect. It's in Essentials. Just the tape stop effect is just great. Oh, it's called pitch drop. So this emulates like a tape reel slowing down and stopping, which you can get some like fun stuff out of that. So we'll have that on the master track all going, and we will close out this workshop by bringing the tape reel to a complete stop over the course of 3 measures, right?
Oh, that was glorious.
Okay. Thank you guys. Any other questions?
That was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Someone asked, are there any things you wish Max could do that it can't yet?
Oh man, that is a good question. And when it first came out, I had so many answers to that question, but they've kind of really, with each kind of major update, they seem to take care of a lot of the problems that I used to have. I wish I had a good answer for you. I don't, because I usually end up getting to what I need from Max for Live, especially where I'm coming from that standpoint of I want to play my bass, but I also want all this randomized glitchy stuff to be going on at the same time. In pursuing just that, I've managed to find everything that I need. But Max for Live has always been the answer. I can't seem to find those answers in software, other software like Logic or something like that. Like I can't, it won't be there for me. So yeah. Cool. Alrighty. Well, if there are no other questions, I would like to.
There was one more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Can you use the tape stop to speed back up?
Oh no.
Hey, that's from me. I'm just wondering if I know the device doesn't do it, but I saw that other tape stop similar devices don't offer that either. And I was wondering if that's just a conceptual problem, or because to me, I'm wondering it should be possible to speed it up.
Right. That is a great question. I think it is just they went into making that device with just that one let's emulate a tape stop. I am sure if we pick apart the patch and open it up, we would find a way. So pretty much how that device is going to work is it'll record incoming audio into a buffer while simultaneously slowing down the rate at which that buffer is played back. It stands to reason that you could just reverse playback of that buffer and speed it back up.
Well, the logical problem is that you can't play it back faster than you record it, right? So like you can't hit activate and play forward in time, right? You'd have to hit it, record for 10 measures, and then trigger a playback of those 10 measures, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's the answer,
Yeah, well, so just invent a time machine.
Oh. So, all right. So there's the question. Is there something I wish Max for Live could do? It would be manipulate time, like real time.
Couldn't you just ramp up the tempo?
Oh.
Yeah, but it won't pitch shift everything. That's the problem there. It won't give you that tape vibe because it
you're right.
It faster. Yeah. The subdivisions will change, but not the pitches.
There was great time to mention maxforlive.com. So the Max for Live community is very alive and healthy and well, and also very generous. So they're at maxforlive.com. There's a giant library of tons of devices that people just upload and share with each other. And for the vast majority of it, it's all totally free. These are just people sharing their work with each other. So again, going back to that idea of computer as collaborator, that concept is very much alive and well over at maxforlive.com. And one of the first devices, I'll try to dig this up really quick. I know we're going over, so all apologies, but I could kind of recreate the effect that you want with there was like a reverser Max for Live device. And if you pitch shift down, you do have to listen to the tape stop effect, but then immediately you could reverse the buffer that's recorded off of the tape stop effect. And there's a device that did that for me. I have it in my live system.
Well, if you're dealing with pre-recorded stuff, you could just speed up your playback.
Yeah.
And Max for Live, which would be easy. It's the real-time thing that makes it tricky.
Imported FP reverse. I couldn't tell you who made this. Whoever FP is. So let's see what happens when I try to manipulate this. Nope, that didn't work.
Nate, you once quoted a simple reverser for me called Simple Reverser. Remember that?
Yes, I do. I do remember that. Oh man, where did I put it? Hold on. Is it an instrument? No, simple.
And F, as long as you remember what you called it.
Right. FX. Boom.
Hey.
Right. So this is Max is in the room. Hey, Max. Very, very, very capable drummer and all-around musician based in Dallas. Are you still in Dallas?
Yep.
Yeah, right on. All right. He does awesome stuff. Do you still perform under the moniker Spacebar?
Spacebar. Yes, I'm currently working on releasing some more stuff because I haven't really put much online, but I'm still, it's a live performance signal processing rig doing like all kinds of real-time signal processing while playing drums. And I'm incorporating more jitter stuff too now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just brought up jitter. Jitter would be the collection of objects in that match patching environment that handles visual data. So if you want to take live feeds off of cameras and then glitch that stuff out with different filters and what have you, that is also totally possible. And then you have what Max is talking about right now, where this giant system of audio and video. But let me just see. The way this device I made for Max works is you press this button to record into a buffer, and when you release it, it plays it back in reverse. So theoretically, if I place this device after the pitch drop, I'll have a wind down and then a wind back up. So let's see how that works. Yeah, so that did what I thought it would do. Good idea, Max. Thank you. Yeah, any other questions?
I've got an idea for a hacky workaround for whoever wanted to push more than one button at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's hardware and it's ridiculous, but you know those momentary switches that are about this big? Just get a teensy, and then you line up like 10 of these, and then map each one, and then put a big thing on top of all 10 of them and smack it. So then you could do as much as you want.
Hell yeah!
And it's ridiculous and
I think you
absurd.
can do multiple mappings for one control in Ableton. So
Yeah,
you can click map and then click the control, press the button, click another control, press the same button, and it won't clear the first mapping. I think both mappings will persist, right? Right, Nathan?
Yeah. So one control to multiple places will work. Multiple controls to one place will not. That there's one thing that I wish you know that you can work around that using Max for Live, but I wish Ableton didn't get rid of multiple.
Sure, like having a knob and a fader that control the same parameter.
Yeah, I would like to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Right on. Guys, thank you so much for coming and participating. And I will pack all this stuff up to you, and you can go and make glitchy weird madness and have a lot of fun doing it.
Awesome, Nate. Thank you so much, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do with Max for Live. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much for showing us all this stuff. And yeah, I'll pack this stuff up. I'm going to send out an email to everyone via Eventbrite. So be on the lookout for that, because that's how I'll communicate with everyone through that signed up. And yeah, so be sure to go check out our upcoming courses if you've got some interest in this kind of stuff. Dadageek.com. We've got some good stuff coming up. So quarter starts this Monday, by the way. So jump on it. All right, y'all. Thanks for coming by. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Alberto. Thanks, Adam, for hanging around and helping us out as well.
Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good to see y'all.